I think CMC, look, I've seen this team for more than 4 decades. He is, in a way, the most unique running back I've ever seen. I don't mean the best, but the most unique. I saw Pollard last night. He's a nice little running back, but he's not as good as Christian McCaffrey. I wouldn't trade them for each other. So let's talk about what were you going to say?
In terms of runners, I mean, I might even prefer Pollard. He's faster, but what makes McCaffrey so unique is what he does as a receiver. And I've seen other running backs who've been able to do it, but it's rare. It's like Marshall Faulk was like this. And now the Niners have a guy like this. What do you like about watching Christian McCaffrey play?
Yeah, let me say this. I'm going to be more diagnostic than praising. I watched Saquon Barkley, last weekend, and on his second touchdown run, as I recall, he was right near the goal line, and he got the ball and he pushed back a defensive lineman because he had such power. Barkley has such strong legs, and he got a touchdown by running through, not around, running through a defensive lineman. That's really impressive. Again, I'm not saying he's a better player than CMC.
Different.
CMC could not do that.
Right.
They're different. And I'll tell you, because I've looked at, I didn't really follow him at Stanford. I don't like college sports, and I tried to avoid it as much as possible when I was I just don't like it. So I wasn't all that familiar with him. But what he does and what I love about it, in the chaos of the line of scrimmage, and there's a lot of chaos there, he is so brilliant. He can find open areas and lanes in the chaos of there, and all of a sudden he's got 12 yards, where someone else would have had a loss.
Yeah.
So he's brilliant navigating that chaos.
Like he's not one of these little guys who can't run between the tackles.
He absolutely
can find ways.
can.
He can
find openings faster than you can imagine them.
Yes.
But if there's someone who blocks his way, like a defensive lineman or a linebacker, and gets in front of him and gets his hands on him, he's down.
Yeah.
He's down. He cannot run through that. So he's a different kind of running back than Saquon Barkley. And what I feel the Niners have is both kinds. They have Elijah Mitchell, who can do more of that power running. I do not consider him a power runner, CMC. I consider him a guy who gets a lot of yards in a unique way, but he can be stopped if there's someone there to stop him.
And what I think is the most interesting thing about McCaffrey is that as good as he is as a runner, he's better as a receiver.
I'd say he's wonderful at both. I want to ask you a question, Niggy. The way I described him as a runner, do you agree with that?
I do. But I think what's so interesting, what's so tough about him is when he's on the field, you have to think like, do I have linebackers who can cover him? If not, what do I do? What do I do? Do I bring down a DB and try to put a safety on him? And if so, can we still stop the run? There's all these dilemmas you have where with Barkley, you just have to stop you could throw the ball to Barkley too, but he's not the same kind of route runner. He's not going to beat you. You check it down to him. But with him, you just got to stop the run, load up. With McCaffrey, you can't load up to stop McCaffrey. He'll beat you even worse if you do that. He'll beat you through the air. Yeah.
Yeah. He is one of the most unique players that the Niners have ever had. And again, I don't cover them anymore, but I find that there are certain players who are a pleasure to watch. Brock Purdy is a pleasure to watch. Yeah. In the old days, Russell Wilson, not anymore, was a pleasure to watch. CMC is a pleasure to watch. Yeah. He can break away on any play. Now, there are some plays where they'll get him for -1 yard. Yes. But he has the ability to break away on every play, and that's thrilling. It's really fun. I find I'm hyper alert when he gets the ball.
Also, you say your favorite play is a screen, right? Well, who would you rather throw a screen to than this guy?
Especially if it's a bubble screen. But again, he's not a wide receiver.
Or a regular screen.
Or a regular screen, yeah.
I'd love to know what Bill Walsh would think of McCaffrey. I think this his kind of running back.
I think he would have been in love with him. He loved Roger Craig, and I think Roger Craig was a very good running back. I actually prefer McCaffrey as an all-around player.
Why?
Well, I feel he's more elusive as a running back and a better wide receiver, a better receiver. And don't get me wrong, Craig was really something.
Craig was powerful.
Very powerful. And this kid doesn't have that power.
Yeah.
But boy is. But the thing is, he doesn't have that power, but he goes over 100 yards all the time.
Yeah, it's true. They use him a lot. And the most surprising thing for me with him is how durable he's been. Yeah. In Carolina, the word was, oh, he's a little small. He gets banged up. Is he going to play? Man, they've been just giving him the ball nonstop, and he's been fine, popping up after every play.
I have one other thing to say about him and Kyle, and it's praise of Kyle and criticism of Kyle. I think in terms of imagination, Kyle really uses McCaffrey well. He imagines the field, and he sees this kid, and he knows all the things he can do. I love that combination, but he uses him. He runs him too much.
I think so too.
I think it's a foolhardy because he's got other really good running backs, and if you lose this kid, let me put it like this: if you lose this kid, it's worse than losing Deebo Samuel.
I agree. If you lose this kid, you got a problem. There's a reason they traded so much for him. There's a reason they traded so much for him.
Yeah.
He makes the quarterback's life so easy.
Iggy, tell us again, what is he like when you talk to him?
In a group interview, he's very prepared, polished, and mature, but kind of boring. He doesn't say that much. But a lot of times that's because most 80% of questions in group interviews are boring and bad anyway. If you linger after the group interview and talk to him, he's down to earth. He doesn't big time you. He'll talk. He's normal. I like him a lot. He seems like a good guy.
Interesting. Does he have a sense of humor?
Yes, I think he does have a sense of humor. I think he tries not to show it. He's trying to be a pro. He grew up around his dad's Ed McCaffrey, so I'm sure from a very young age this is how you act in an interview, and it's very buttoned up. You know what I mean? But when you get him out of that, he actually has a sense of humor. Yes,
I love it.
Yes,
I love it.
What he's trying to do is be professional, which you appreciate, right? You know, I'm going to dress up. I'm going to be serious. I'm going to answer these questions. I'm going to give eye contact. Like at a certain point, it's almost like you could be like, "Hey, man, like, relax. We all appreciate how serious you're taking this, but you can also like show your personality in this interview too, not just afterward." But it just feels like he's a little nervous. Not nervous, but just, you know what I mean?
Button down. Does he seem bright like a Stanford kid?
Yes, he does. Now, I'm not saying he would have gotten in if he weren't an athlete, but you could tell he's a very bright person, yes.
Look, I have something to say about getting in as an athlete at Stanford.
Yeah.
I mean, I spent a lot of years there, and I taught there.
It's true.
I think the standards for a football player may be slightly less than for the average undergraduate, but not much.
That's true.
I mean, it's not like at Cal. Now, maybe it's changed.
I think they changed it, but when Tedford was there, they changed it. They made it lax.
But let's say I think in the SEC they must bend a lot of rules. I don't know. I don't know those people. At Stanford, I've had athletes. I've had football players when I taught freshman English. They had to do the work. No one came in and said, this is so and so. You need to grade him easier, or you need to let a proctor look at his essays. Jackie Brown, who was the running back, and and won the Rose Bowl there. He was like anybody else in my freshman English class, and he was damn good. So I would assume McCaffrey, it might have been a little easier for him, but he's a Stanford student.
And if you think about it, it's harder to be a student athlete than a regular athlete because, again, that's two jobs. Right. It's a lot of hours you have to put into going to practice and weightlifting and waking up and all that stuff. And then you have to go to practice, go to class, and do your homework and be a kid at some point. It's hard.
Right, it's right, and be a kid at some point.
Really, you can't be a kid. You can't be a kid when you're just a student and you go to college. There's like a lot of I'll go out and it's part of growing up. When you're a student athlete, you have to pretty much be a pro. Like you got to budget your time, and you can't have that much fun. It's hard. It's hard.